When a person says, well, here's the thing, I've learned that's not good. She said, well, here's the thing. All of those guys, she said, Zig Ziglar will be there and Patino. She said, those guys bring their books. And she said, when they bring their books, she said, they sell their books. And back then, I'll date myself, and their cassettes. And they sell their cassettes, and they look at some of the young ones and go, the what? It used to be like buy 2 cassettes and you get a VH tape free. She said, we get to sell our products. I said, did it occur to you that I don't have a book? She said, you have a cassette? I had done a cassette called Determining Your Altitude. That's it. I sold it for $10. I said, how many do we have? She goes, there's another problem. We only have 10. I go, well, if you're doing the math, Marcia, we can make $100 for me going to Nashville, Tennessee to speak. She said, it's an opportunity. People are going to hear you. They're going to love you. Boy, and to this very day, 18 years later, just see her down on a trade show. She's still all fired up. She said, they're going to love you. She said, and I'll take those 10 cassettes. And she said, I'll handle it. We get down in Nashville, Tennessee. I'll never forget. This handler walks us around. He said, now here's your setup. I saw 6 6-foot tables. 36 feet of table space for product display. I said, Marcia, how do we get 30? She said, well, we could have as many tables up to 6. And, I thought I said, yeah, what? She said, well, I just wanted to fit in. I go, we have 10 cassettes. She put 1 on each table. I'm backstage and I'm fired up and Zig Ziglar's out on stage. And if you've ever seen Zig live, he's got that pump handle. And God rest his soul, man. He had me, I'm crying backstage. I'm following the legend Zig Ziglar. They have told me that probably 3,000 to 4,000 people will leave. Oh, she's not leaving. But I'm so fired up. And then they did, Vince did not introduce me there. I had this, all of a sudden I heard backstage, and they told me, be ready. I heard, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Gilliland. And my wife knows me because I spoke at MDRT one year. Before I spoke, I was backstage crying because I get so passionate, so emotional. I'm crying when they introduce me, and I'm like, get a hold of yourself. Well, I come out there and I gave it everything I had. When I was done, man, they came to their feet. I was like, yes! I walked off and I had a handler. He said, I'm going to take you around to your product table. I'm like, yeah, well, we don't have to walk fast. We went around that product table. Marcia's just standing there grinning. She's like this. She's waving like 10 tens. Like, she said, and a guy walked up. The guy said, you got any more of his stuff? He goes, no, we sold out. We sold out. Some guy walked up. This guy walked up to her. Last guy, man. No neck. No visible neck. Big guy. I didn't even have a badge on. I thought, is he with this group? He walked up to me. He said, I need you and I need you bad. I said, you are? He said, I own a construction company. And his exact words, verbatim, were this. He said, I drove over here from Chattanooga to hear Zig Ziglar. He was going to speak at my company. He said, I'm not asking Zig. He said, I want you. And I went, okay. He said, my meeting's in July. I played it up. I said, that's just a few weeks from now. I said, I'll have to check my schedule to make sure I'm available. Hey, if Marcia can play it, I can play it. When I said that, he looked at me and said, I'll pay anything. I said, we'll have a date available. Trust me. He said, that's what I like about you. You're funny. He said, I hired a guy last year, Armani, Gucci, Rolex, perfect hair, perfect kids, perfect wife. He was perfect. He said, my guys hated him. He said, they're going to like you. He left, and I'll never forget, by the way, a whole other speech on this one. Labeling is disabling. Remember that, HR. Labeling is disabling. Man, I label this guy. He walks off. I looked at Marcia and said, he'll never call us. 3 days later, he called us. He faxed back a signed program agreement. This is $19.99. Listen to what's on the bottom. A little handwritten note that says he's permitted to fly first class. He can spend up to $2,000 on his ticket. I'm going from Pittsburgh to Chattanooga. You can't spend $2,000 on a ticket. And I'll tell you how I know. I tried. Told U.S. Airways, just give me the whole row. I get on a conference call. You're going to love this. I get on a conference call. I get on there. He said, hey, I told you I was going to hire you. I said, yeah. I said, tell me a little bit about the group. He said, you only need to know 3 things. A. I love when people do that. 3 things. A. He said, they don't like speakers. He said, number 2. He said, they don't like this meeting I have with them every year. I thought, okay. He said, and the last one, he's kind of a big one. He said, the meeting's on a Saturday. It's their day off. It's going to really tick them off. I said, give me the demographics. How many male, female in the company? It's a construction company. I said, how many male, how many? He said, it'll all be men there. I go, whoa. You have no women that work for you? He goes, don't be stupid. I got a lot of women that work for me. They're all positive. They don't need to be there. I flew down because I had the money, thanks to them. Marcia goes with me. Marcia and I are at downtown Chattanooga, and I'm nervous wreck. I mean, I am nervous. Here come these guys, and I'm like, oh, man. I said, they do not look like they want to be here. Marcia goes, I'll take care of it. I said, remember, get their names real big. Because we were doing these Big 10 cards, and some of you do training in your own company. Big 10 card, how to get the most out of today's, And Marcia goes, would you just go up to your room and relax? She said, I can handle writing a person's name. I get upstairs, come back down. Next thing I know, Marcia said, when I come down, she goes, I don't think they're using their real names. I said, how do you know that? She said, so far there's 5 here. Fred, Wilma, Bam Bam, Dino, and Barney. I said, what'd you write the Flintstones for? She said, I'm going to tell you someone, a guy 6'6", 295 pounds, wearing jeans, boots, and a cowboy hat, says he's Wilma, he's Wilma. I went to get started, and all of a sudden, Joe, the owner, said, we'll start when Brian gets here. I said, who's Brian? He said, all my foremen, field supervisors, and project managers report to him. He said, we'll start when he gets here. He said, that boy needs to hear you. He said, he influences a lot of people. He said, I want to start when he gets here, and don't let him intimidate you. Boy, back in 1999, I was lean and mean and sassy. I said, he does not want any of this. He went, oh, yeah, he does. Here he come down, 6'3", maybe 6'4". Tony Lamas ostrich cowboy boots, Wrangler blue jeans, and a belt buckle the size of a Dell laptop computer. Styrofoam cup, he's not drinking coffee, he's making deposits. Owner looked at me, looked at Brian, said, this is our speaker. Brian went like this to me. Walked in. Then the owner introduced me. There ain't no voice of God or Vince that day. Owner of the company says, and I quote, here's my introduction. All right, fellas, knock it off. I know you don't want to be here. I'm in the back thinking, that's it, remind them. He said, one piece of house cleaning. Don't you dare do this year's speaker what you did that guy last year. He brought me up. I'm all fired up in the morning. I'm doing a morning session, an afternoon session. By lunchtime, first guy back in the room is Brian. Brian, Margaret used to say to me, what comes from the heart goes to the heart. She said, don't ever speak from your head. Speak from your heart. I have no idea what I said that hit his heart, but I know this. He said, you got something I can write with? That was it. That was our conversation. I gave him something to write with, got to the end, and here's what I said, the same as I'm going to say to you. I looked at this group of men, political correctness. I said, guys, we're all in this together. Let me ask you, how many of you are married? Hands went up everywhere. Brian went like this. And I said, how many years have you been married? He said, 19. I said, what's your wife's name? He said, Lisa. I said, do you have any children? He said, 3. I began to tear up because I was fighting tears. Because in 1999, at that engagement, I was a single guy with 2 kids, and I didn't want to be single. And when he did this, I said, then don't you dare do what I did. I spent 11 years in a company. 9 of them was an incredible career. The last 2 were a job. I said, when I lost my passion, I lost my focus, and I didn't understand the purpose, it became a job. I said, ask yourself what brought you here. All of you here, ask yourself what brought you into this career? What brought you into this profession? And then ask yourself, do you still have that same fire in your belly? I said, when you go home tonight, Brian, you ask yourself that. I said, but then when you do get home, you find your wife of 19 years, and I'm okay to say it now, I broke into tears and said, don't you dare go home and take that for granted either. Because I said, I used to wake up and there was a craft of coffee. There was a little half and half. I never expected it. Never did she feel obligated. But I'd pour that coffee into that cup and walk away. Never thought a thing about it until I woke up one day and she wasn't there. I said, Brian, you go home tonight, you find your wife of 19 years, you kiss her on the cheek, you tell her you love her. I said, then when you go to bed, I said, I'm going to hypothetically throw this out. Those sheets are going to be fresh, they're going to be clean. I'll bet I know how they got that way. When's the last time you kissed her on the cheek and told her how much you appreciate even that? I said, add value to that marriage. I said, and see what happens. Man, just like here, 2,900 people, you could have heard a pin drop when I said, you going to do it? And he said, you're bizarre. I said, bizarre or not, it's going to work. I'm leaving a hotel in downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. I said to Marcia, I said, we need to go get the rental car. And all of a sudden I heard, Speaker Man. Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, Speaker Man. He said, come here. Marcia said, I'll go get the car. I shook his hand. He said, I'm sorry. He goes, the remark at the end, man, he said, you threw me. But he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, when I was 5, my dad bought me a dump truck. When I was 6, he bought me a Tonka grader and a skidder. By the time I was 7, I had every construction thing Tonka made. By the time I was 8, I had a construction site in my backyard. He said, this was my passion. I knew I wanted to do this. He said, you know what I focused on for the last 10 months working at that company? Everything that's broke. Everything that's wrong. He said, you've reignited a passion in me, baby. He said, come Monday, I'm back to loving construction. I said, what about tonight when you get home? He said, oh, don't you worry. He said, if I ever woke up and my wife Lisa wasn't laying beside me, I'd tell God not to wake me up the next day. He said, I'm going to find her and I'm going to lay one on her and say, I love you. I said, you may want to practice on the way home. I got a letter 4 days later from Brian. It became my mantra. It became something that would keep me so motivated most days. And at the end of the letter, because I said to him prior to leaving that day, I said, are you going to do the sheet thing? And I'll never forget, he said, I'm not doing no linen sniffing this weekend. He writes me a letter, and he gets to the PS of the letter, and it said, and by the way, you'd have been proud of me. I did the sheet thing. I called him up 2 days later. I got him on the phone. He said, who's this? I said, Steve Gilliland. He said, who? I said, the speaker from Chattanooga. He said, Speaker Man, you got any more of those tips? He said, I like stuffed pork chops, white gravy, green beans, mashed potatoes, coleslaw, butter, carrots, homemade biscuits, and sausage gravy. He said, in 19 years of marriage, I've had my favorite breakfast, lunch, and dinner fixed for me in the same day 3 times. Since you spoke, I got it again. Said, Sheben gave me a massage. I said, what happened? He said, she was by the kitchen sink. I went to lay one on her. She turned too quick, and I kissed her in the eyelid. I said, what'd she say? You been drinking? He said, I went to bed that night. She was crying, and I said, Lisa, are you okay? I thanked her for not just the sheets. I thanked her for everything that I'd taken for granted. She said, the next day before I wrote you, he said, the next day I went by the laundry room. She was stuffing laundry in the washing machine. She's crying. I said, oh, no. I said, Lisa, are you okay? She turned smiling, crying. She said, Brian, for 19 years, I've done this laundry because I thought I had to, not because I wanted to. She said, today is the first day I've done it because I want to. If you want to know if you've arrived as a leader, you just simply ask yourself one question. Do people follow you because they want to or because they have to? Grow yourself first, then grow your people. Thank you so much, and God bless.